Hey everybody, how's it going? Matthew Kadish here, author of the Earthman Jack Space Saga, available over on Amazon.com. And in today's video, we get into something that has been bothering me for a long time, which is all these rumors that are flying around about Rian Johnson and his trilogy not happening. Now, I, as much as anyone, would like to see Rian Johnson take a graceful exit from the Star Wars franchise. I was not a fan of The Last Jedi, and I don't think that Rian Johnson as a filmmaker is healthy for the Star Wars franchise going forward. But despite all that, we have to face reality. And unfortunately, there are a lot of fake news rumors flying around there about Rian Johnson and his trilogy. So in today's video, I really wanted to lay out the case as to why Rian Johnson is safe in his position, why his movies are going to be moving forward, and what we can do about it as fans in the near future. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, and let me know in the comments whether or not you agree with my take or not. Anyway, guys, let's get right to it. Okay, guys, so moving on, I want to talk about a big rumor that it refuses to die. And this is something that just irks me to no end. And this is the rumor that Rian Johnson's Star Wars trilogy is dead. He's been fired. He's not directing any of the movies. He's not writing his trilogy. Nothing's going forward. And this rumor has surfaced many different times. And each time it comes up, I always say, no, this is wrong. And people insist that it's right. And then, someone official comes out and says, no, this is wrong. And then it goes away. And then a little while later, it comes back. And yesterday, I'm not going to reveal who put this out on Twitter because I don't want to give the account any credibility here. But someone on Twitter made something up and posted it as inside information coming from Disney that Rian Johnson has been removed from Lucasfilm and that his trilogy is no longer going forward. And we have this article here from Bounding Into Comics, which just lost all credibility to me as a news source for even posting this. And the headline is Rumor Rian Johnson's Star Wars Trilogy Axed by Lucasfilm. And what I want to do here right now with you guys is I want to lay out my case for why Rian Johnson is not fired. And you guys can be the jury, and you can tell me whether or not I'm full of BS and who you think is correct in this. And basically, when everyone was saying Kathleen Kennedy was going to get fired, I was one of the lone voices out there saying, no, she's going to be renewed. She's not going anywhere. In fact, she's going to be there till 2030, probably. Everyone called me crazy, and I was hoping I was wrong, but it turns out I wasn't. In this case, I do hope I'm wrong. I hope that Rian Johnson is out of Lucasfilm before his trilogy starts getting made. But as of right now, I believe that he is entrenched. He's not going anywhere. Disney is fully on board with him writing his own trilogy. And this is the segment where I'm going to tell you guys why I believe this. So as you know, Rian Johnson has a movie coming out this Thanksgiving called Knives Out. It's a fairly low budget kind of murder mystery type thing where he kind of deconstructs the Agatha Christie trope of the gentleman detective who is isolated in a house with a group of suspects, kind of like Murder on the Orient Express, except in a southern setting. And if we look over here, I want to point to this article from complex.com where it kind of talks about Rian Johnson and the budget for his upcoming movie. And it says that the official budget numbers for Knives Out have not yet been released, but IMDb estimates the cost of around $40 million. And the cast features Daniel Craig, Chris Evans, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Lika Stanfield. So basically, Rian Johnson, I want to lay out his strategy here because a lot of people kind of don't understand what's going on in terms of Hollywood. I think Rian Johnson was well aware that his film was divisive and that he was getting a lot of backlash. And what could have happened after The Last Jedi was he could have gone off and directed a $100 million, $200 million movie and, done another A-list, film. But instead, he retreated and he did a lower budget movie by getting these big name actors on board who are big names overseas. And in exchange for a cut of the back end of the film, they agreed to take a price cut for their front end. So he was able to make the movie a lot cheaper. And I believe the reason for this was that he wanted to ensure that this movie was a financial hit right out the bat for Disney. Now, keep in mind that this movie of his, Knives Out, was $40 million. Okay. Now, this is news where at the Toronto Film Festival, a company called MRC buys the world rights to the Knives Out movie. I'm just going to read you kind of like the first couple paragraphs here. In what sets a high bar for the biggest deal at the 2018 Toronto Film Festival, Media Rights Capital has acquired worldwide rights to Knives Out, a contemporary murder mystery that will star Daniel Craig as a detective assigned to solve a crime, with Rian Johnson directing. The film is now fully financed and ready to shoot in November, with Craig starring before he returns to James Bond 25, which is in the process of getting a new director after the exit of Danny Boyle. Johnson, who wrote the script and is producing with partner Ram Bergman, will direct this as his first feature film since the $1.3 billion global grossing Star Wars The Last Jedi, and before he and Bergman return to architect a new trilogy in Star Wars universe that Johnson is writing to direct. There were multiple parties interested in an auction held by CAA Media Finance and Film Nation, but MRC was the most aggressive in essentially greenlighting the film. Its commitment is upwards of $40 million. So the movie's budget was $40 million, and it just so happens that the film, before it was even went into production, its worldwide exclusive rights were bought for $40 million. So this movie was basically paid for before it even got off the ground. It's a strong back end for Craig and the filmmakers. The film is best described, blah, blah, blah. MRC will approach distributors in the next several weeks. Its financing commitment eases the pressure to lock that down. The deal was different from the Cannes frenzy for 355, the international spy thriller that Simon Kinberg will direct, with Jessica Chastain producing. CAA Media Finance and Film Nation came out of Cannes without about 30 territorial deals, including one for Universal to release domestically. That process has been pushed to a future date for Knives Out. So for those of you who want to unpack this, CAA Media Finance, or Creative Artists Agency, which is one of the biggest talent agencies in Hollywood, which Rian Johnson is a client of, they whipped up this bidding frenzy at the Toronto Film Festival over Knives Out, got everyone excited about it, and this MRC group came in and spent a ton of money, $40 million, to get the rights to this film, which they then used to finance it. So the film was basically made for free. And how does MRC make money off of this? Well, if we go to this Deadline article, there was this Berlin European film market that took place in Germany. And there's even more information here about how the bidding wars were whipped up for Knives Out. And if we take a look at this in the context of this story from Variety, Knives Out sells to KKR's new distribution company in Germany. So MRC is out there selling territorial rights to Knives Out based off the strength of the cast in these international territories. They're making a buttload of money off of selling the rights to this film that was made for $40 million. And basically, this is pure profit now. This is pure profit, and this movie hasn't even come out yet. And so, executives at Disney are looking at this, and it's like, well, Knives Out is guaranteed to make money. Now, in terms of the financial end of things, Rian Johnson's risk aversion tactic here is very good, because if he had come out with a $100 million movie and it had unperformed because of the backlash from Last Jedi, Disney would think twice about going forward with him. But instead of doing that, he scaled back. He went with a smaller budget, kind of almost independent film, and even though it's being distributed by Lionsgate. And because of this, he's guaranteed to show that on the books, his movies are going to be profitable. Now, to continue with this is an article from Comics Beat from the Las Vegas, what do you call it? The Las Vegas CinemaCon coverage. And basically, Rian Johnson was at that year's CinemaCon, and he premiered the first footage from Knives Out there. And basically, he said that, like, if we look at this right here, Johnson added that he had been working on the script for 10 years until MRC and Lionsgate stepped up and came aboard. He also teased that after finishing Knives Out, he will be returning to a galaxy far, far away, so that Star Wars trilogy of his still seems to be happening. And this took place in April of 2019, so April of this year. That's just like 5 months ago. Now, in addition to that, at Star Wars Celebration, which was also in April, there was a quote from Kathleen Kennedy where she basically said that, we're not just looking forward to the next 3 years, what that might be. We're talking about this in terms of a trilogy, Kennedy said. And then she goes on to talk about Benioff and Weiss as they finish Game of Thrones, they're going to segue into Star Wars. Kennedy said of Benioff and Weiss, they're working very closely with Rian. So Kathleen Kennedy and Rian Johnson within the same month came out and both said that his trilogy is still going forward. He's still working on Star Wars. He's still involved in Lucasfilm. Now, here's something that's very interesting that not a lot of people are talking about, okay? So basically, when a movie gets kind of going, the studio will create offices for a movie where they can start putting staffers in to work on the day-to-day type of stuff. Now, if you're in the development phase and you're definitely going forward, they can create these offices that early, or they can wait until a movie's been greenlit and go and do it then. And Disney kind of does these things in blocks where they create, their own separate entities for each movie. And that's pretty much what's been going on with Star Wars. And I want to read this article from CBR just to kind of give you guys some context here. After Episode 9 debuts in December, production will seemingly begin on the standalone trilogies set in Star Wars universe from Game of Thrones creators David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, The Last Jedi director Rian Johnson. New reports suggest Disney has the latter actually already has a production name. According to Fantha Tracks, Disney has registered a production company that's expected to work on the first film of Rian Johnson's trilogy by the name of E&E Industries UK Limited. While this isn't a working title per se, Johnson's Star Wars The Last Jedi was registered under the company's Space Bear Industries UK Limited with the working title of Space Bear. This doesn't mean that filming is close to commencing, but it indicates Lucasfilm is ready to employ staff under the banner of E&E Industries. Recently, rumors suggested the future of Rian Johnson's trilogy was in doubt, but he himself has since debunked those rumors. This isn't the first time it's been rumored Johnson was off the project, blah, blah, blah. But the interesting thing here is that Disney has secured a company with the name E&E Industries specifically for Rian Johnson's trilogy. Now, my guess is that they have employed staff, and Rian Johnson is getting things set up over there while he's doing the other projects. But the fact that he has a company in the UK that is gearing up for the production of his trilogy, the fact that Kathleen Kennedy and he himself has publicly stated multiple times that he's working with Lucasfilm, he's working on this new trilogy, and the fact that Knives Out is guaranteed to make money, he's basically covered all of his bases here. And this is all evidence that his trilogy is a lock. It's going forward. He's not going anywhere. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, that the only way that he's going to get booted off this project is if Kathleen Kennedy gets removed, if the Benioff and Weiss and Episode 9 movies all bomb, and if the people running Disney decide that he's not financially successful enough to take on the Star Wars franchise. So guys, that's my case for Rian Johnson being not fired. I want to hear from you guys. Tom, I know you have to get going soon, so let's start with you. What do you think about this?
Well, I think it's interesting. The one person who hasn't really ever mentioned the Rian Johnson trilogy, to my knowledge, since all this, and has mentioned Benioff and Weiss and many other things, has been Bob Iger. Now, one other thing that you keep pointing out, I think on your own, and even though we keep saying trilogy, is he's only attached to direct one movie and just set up a trilogy, right? And when you and I have even debated on how much the whole Benioff and Weiss thing might cross over with his, or if they are the same thing, or if they're totally unrelated. And these things could change over time. I think you're right about Knives Out. I don't think that's going to have a play into this either way. Just like I don't think that the Book of Henry, whatever it was called, I don't think that had anything to do with Trevorrow getting booted from the episode 9 either. I think that was totally internal arguments. I think they use that as an excuse and a reason publicly to fire him, but I don't think that was the reason. As far as Johnson goes, I think you're right. I don't think that he's going to be out unless something happens to where Kathleen Kennedy is gone as well, because those two are peas in a pod. Other than that, I really have nothing more to add to this other than I hope it doesn't happen, but I'm sure it's going to happen just because, like you said, they set up these separate companies, and if the company's already set up, then that means some type of pre-production at least has already commenced, even though he himself keeps saying this, yeah, it's happening, but, it's going to be a long way off. It's going to be years. It's going to be, years and years before you see this thing, which to me sounds like, oh, yeah, I got a girlfriend, but she lives in Canada, and you'll never meet her. Kind of like one of those things to me. It's just, yeah.
All right. So, Mr. Drunk 3PO, I laid out my case here. Who do you think is right? Do you think Rian Johnson's out the door, or do you think he's here to stay?
He ain't. Sadly, and he's here to stay. And you know why these articles leak or people make them up? Because it definitely drives traffic to whatever they're trying to push. It really does. If I put out a tweet and I said breaking news, I just got a source that Rian Johnson's trilogy's out, it will, it'll drive a lot of traffic to my Twitter account, whether it's positive or negative. But because we in the fandom people either love him or they hate him. I don't know if there's much of a middle ground here. So.
Okay,
I'm not gonna see it. Like, listen, I'm not calling for boycotts or anything, but I just can't stand the man. So I'm just like, go have fun, go make your little Star Wars story. Have fun,
Mr. Salty Nerd. One of the things that makes you so salty is this outrage culture where people just make crap up, hammer it into the ground with YouTube videos and tweets and Facebook posts, and they basically exploit it in order to get attention and get more followers and stuff like that. So, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm in agreement with you. I think we're stuck with him for a while unless there's some crazy major changes in Lucasfilm management. He's going to be around for a while. So love him or hate him, get used to him because he's going to be here. And I hope he's not. I hope they later on move on and something changes and he goes in a different direction. That's my personal opinion. But like you said, what makes me more irritated than anything else is watching YouTubers use these topics to drive fans into getting involved in their channels. And I see it as them, it's unethical. I see it as them taking advantage of people who might be less informed than we are, or who might just knee-jerk reaction into the video and go on there and hit the like button and subscribe and do all this stuff because they think that these people are touting truth when they're really not. And they know they're not. And, they know it's bullcrap because they're just as involved as we are. So that's what irritates me most. I don't like seeing those people get support. I don't like seeing those people fool fans into thinking something that's true that's really not. And I don't see it as being any different than what CNN does to their fans and what other news stations that we claim fake news. Like, well, guess what, guys? You're fake news if you're touting this kind of stuff for clicks. So that irritates me more than anything. But I don't want to see Rian Johnson make more movies. I think he ruined one of the most iconic characters in cinema history, and I don't want to see him do any more. But it's an unfortunate reality is they're looking at the money that they're going to make, and his movies make money. So it's bottom line.
Now, Mr. Vader, I know that you, more than anyone, wishes that these rumors were true. But what are your thoughts on this? Do you think I'm right, or do you think I'm off base here?
I think you lay out a pretty good case, Matt. I think he hasn't gone anywhere as of yet. I think I don't think it's a lost cause. I think depending on what episode 9 does and the popularity of the Google Plus series, I think that has a lot more of the story to tell. I think Disney and Lucasfilm are fools if they kept Rian Johnson on, because there was obviously a huge effect following The Last Jedi on Solo, and that was, I think that was a fan reaction to his movie, not fatigue or whatever they want to call it. He's toxic. He's a toxic filmmaker when it comes to the Star Wars brand, and that's not going to go away. So, but no, I think he's still there. I think he's still there, like you said, and hopefully not for much longer. But
well, I think he's going to be in there for the long haul. In fact, I kind of pick up on some signals that Kathleen Kennedy might be grooming him to take over should she step down, but which is the nightmare scenario.
Oh my God!
Like I said, they're just hints. Like, I don't know if he'd even want to do it, but
Don't speak that into existence.
They're there.
I'm sorry, I just passed out. What happened?
Yeah, what the heck? Tom, say something funny quickly.
Jesus.
I died of a heart attack after that. I can't say shit.
But the big takeaway here is that I think that there's a broader issue in terms of how these rumors are handled in the fandom, in the sense that journalism nowadays seems to be, hey, somebody makes something up, they post it on Twitter or Reddit. Legitimate news sources then cite those as the source of these rumors. They put rumor in the title just to cover their butts and drive up people into a frenzy just to get those clickbait clicks to keep their lights on.
They're just doing it for clicks and money. It's totally fine. If they're open about that, it's totally okay, right?
Well, let's go to the source.
They're just playing on another level, bro. You're just not up to date with
I know
them.
he's being facetious, but my point is that this came from a tweet. And not from a tweet from a celebrity or anybody involved with anything. It just came from a random tweet, like Matt said.
Anonymous Twitter account.
And I said this in a private DM thing where we have a bunch of us or whatever. I say, this is the equivalent of somebody sticking their head out the window and yelling at their neighbor and say, hey, guess what I just heard about Cindy?
Yeah.
That's how much this to me means anything. Unless they have some significance, that you should ignore every damn tweet out there when it comes to this guy. I have a rumor bullshit. And I know we get poked constantly about our sources, but at least when it comes to our sources, when I'm talking to people like Matt in private, it's like, I try to, like, I'm not going to tell you our sources, but I'll kind of give you a map. And at least then he kind of understands who I'm talking about in a way to where he kind of gets where I'm getting my info from, to where it's not just totally shit we pull out the air.
Like you guys, you put your names out there, you put your faces out there. There's some accountability,
right?
Like when you're using a bad source. The people doing this stuff, they're anonymous.
Well, we just had to
anonymous, and they themselves are anonymous. So it's like, why should you just believe anything you say?
Well, we just had to basically say one of our reports was bullshit yesterday in our video. The whole Wakandan. What's his face character from Spider-Man, the Hunter, Kraven
the Hunter.
Like, obviously that's bullshit. That's not happening. Especially if this has been going on for months and they haven't made a deal yet, because we were under the assumption this deal was pretty much done before the $1 billion mark was crossed. Everybody would have thought, well, this makes total sense. It's a win-win for everybody. Make the deal. No, they didn't make the deal. They've been fighting about it. But anyway, that's back to the first story.
Can I say one thing, Matthew?
Go ahead.
As long as I've known you, you've always been cool, calm, and collective. But when this tweet came out, I have never seen you so angry. Like,
I get it.
Like, you're going after people. How dare you use this as a source? You have no credibility. How dare you even retweet this? Man, you were just like, I was like, dang, Matthew is going hard on Twitter today.
I was truthful,
I was getting him riled up in the DMs. I was like, Matt, you see this shit?
No, but he's got a point. And this is the kind of shit we do need to come back, because this is the kind of shit that's giving people in the fandom menace a bad name. This is the kind of shit that's giving a lot of people a bad name, is reporting on crap like this that is obvious nonsense, unless it's coming from a credible source of some type. Even if it is a rumor, at least if it comes from a credible source, then it's something you can take seriously. You cannot take Harriet sticking her head out the window and saying something about Cindy being serious. I'm sorry. It just
I got to give you some context to my impatience with this guy.
I'm getting salty just thinking about it.
Yeah. So this account, it's been popping up more and more in my feed. People have been kind of like tagging me in posts that this account puts up. And they have been putting out stuff like, insider information about Blade being a Muslim, the Lord of the Rings diversity casting, like a bunch of unfounded rumors that seem to gain traction. And the killer thing about the way that this account's going about doing this stuff is that it's never unbelievable what they post. There's always a kernel of truth, and like it could be true. So that's what makes it catch on. That's what makes it dangerous, is because like people could legitimately believe that, yes, this stuff is happening. And so early on, back when the Blade Muslim thing came out, I tweeted at the account, and I said, hey, do you have a source for this? And the person said, oh, I can't reveal my source because the source is myself, and I get a lot of insider info, and if I were to reveal myself, I'd get fired. And apparently this person who runs the account works at a studio and hears a lot of stuff. And so I'm like, well, okay, no big deal. But then this account's getting more and more popular, and it's getting quoted more and more the more bull crap that it posts. And so every time it posts something, I'm like, hey, can you give us a source on this? And they're just like, no. And I'm like, can you at least, reveal your name? They're like, no. And so I'm like, when this came out, I couldn't hold back my anger any longer, because I was just like, look, there is no credibility behind these like, this is literally someone making stuff up. And what really got me was that Bounding Into Comics article.
I was like, release the Kraken.
I sent you that, and I was like, fuck.
I was like, really, Bounding Into Comics? Really? Like, an unsourced, uncredited, anonymous Twitter account posts a rumor that it says can't be verified until December. It's like that's the brilliant thing that this account's doing, is like, it's always saying that, like, oh, details incoming, and it's doing stuff that's like far enough out where you can't disprove it. And so like that adds like an air of legitimacy to it. But honestly, it's just like, this is literally someone who's in their mother's basement making stuff up and passing it off as inside information. And it drives me crazy.
Attention.
Yeah.
He's very polite about the way he replies to you, though.
Yes, he is. Well,
yeah,
I don't attack him personally. I attack the information that he's putting out.
But Matt's right. This is exactly what I was saying before. This is exactly the kind of thing that gets out there and gives, people like us and Nerdrotic and Doomcock and anybody else who reports on any of this kind of stuff. I mean, we don't. But I'm just saying, if we were to, it's the type of stuff that, if we run with that, it's going to give us a bad name. And we try to avoid having to correct ourselves. Like I said earlier, we don't want to have to say something we said was bullshit. But you know what? Once in a while, you get past some bad info. Now, that doesn't mean that Disney and Marvel and Feige didn't have plans to do that with Kraven the Hunter. What happened, though, is this shit broke down. So now that's not going to happen either way unless they come to some agreement. So my point is that happens sometimes. That's just one of those happenstance. But no, this is straight up somebody just coming out and saying, no, I don't have a source. I'm just saying this because I think this is what's going to happen. And I'm presenting it like it's news, like it's some kind of rumor or leak.
It's the Chicken Little syndrome, like where, if you scream the sky is falling long enough, people drown you out, and then your legitimate criticisms get dismissed.
Yeah. And Tom, there's a big difference between, I don't have a problem if a YouTuber says, does one video where they think there's a news scoop and they talk about it real quick, and then they realize they're wrong and they go back and correct themselves, or they say, hey, we got some bad information. That doesn't bother me at all. What bothers me is people who purposefully mine this kind of content day after day, 2 videos a day.
And we get accused of it all the time, and that's the shitty part, is we don't run with a lot of this crap.
Yeah, I mean, the people who do, though, it just irritates me when I see them growing following, and then when somebody calls them out for it, like, hey, dude, this is bullcrap, then they attack you and say, oh, you just don't understand what I'm doing, blah blah blah. I don't understand how people can be supportive of that kind of thing.
Well, it's an echo chamber, and they want to hear it, and especially if you got a hate boner right now for Star Wars, and you're like, I mean, I'm not happy with the way things Star Wars are going, but I'm not going to go out of my way to hate on it. I'm not going to go out there and just start bashing people who like anything. I have enough people coming after me for what I say about it, so I don't need to add to the problem. It's like, it's just one of those things where you just got to kind of look at it like, you could sensationalize this stuff for clicks, and we do in a certain way when it comes to certain things. But at the same time, where people have asked us, if you guys get something that's a positive thing, would you run with it? And we're like, oh yeah. But a lot of times, either A, it's stuff that we've put in things and nobody's watched it or noticed, or B, it ends up getting out in the main news before we get a chance to do anything about it. Like I've had plenty of stuff in the past where it's like, oh, I got this, and we will run with it. Next thing you know, it's already in Deadline Hollywood or Variety or something like that. And it's like, oh, bummer. You know, it's like, so there's nothing you can do about it. It's one of those things. And a lot of times positive news, unless it's something people are really, really into, it just goes by the wayside. I've done a lot of Bill and Ted coverage that's positive and people just don't notice it.
Well, I'm going to start checking that stuff out for you, but I got to support good streamers.
The long and short of it is Rian Johnson's not going anywhere. He's not fired. His trilogy is still going forward, and he's probably going to be involved in the Benioff and Weiss trilogy. Hey, thanks for checking out this video. I hope you got a lot out of it. And remember, if you want to support the channel, please check us out on the socials. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Matthew Kadish. You can also find our discussion group over on Facebook at eggfbgroup.com. That's eggfbgroup.com. Takes you right to our Facebook discussion group. And if you'd like to help support the channel, check out my books over on Amazon.com. You can find them by going to kadishbooks.com. That's Kadish books.com. And as always, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon so you're notified every time we upload a new video for more movie, TV, and entertainment news and analysis. This is Matthew Kadish. I'll catch you guys later.